Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. And just days after Dashy absolutely violated Censor on the timeline that we shall dive into, Octane defends Dashy a lot for his playstyle change that he made this season. Many were questioning over the past few days when Ghosty was dropped. Should it have been Ghosty? Should it have been Dashy? Octane says that Dashy's disgusting. He's made big strides this year to becoming a better teammate, and that may well help OpTic when they form their new roster for next year. Very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. First of all, thought this is pretty funny actually because Method has been struggling on this game a lot. What's it called? Only upright. And he jumps on the cheese and he dies, and it's an unfortunate moment for the boys. And I know that Clayster, who's pretty much good at everything he plays, hopped on this and completed it in about a couple of hours, which I think is pretty good going for a first attempt effectively. So yeah, Method will continue to have a hard time about this. Also wanted to mention a couple of follow-up things on Octane here. I miss him, say Thieves, and here he is. Obviously Kenny in the background, right? Pretty legendary duo in fairness, Kenny and Octane. It's always tricky to say like who are the best duos in COD history because obviously your mind goes to Scump and Formal, to maybe Attach and Zuma, to maybe even Aches and TP, right? Because they feel like duos in the way they complement each other's playstyle. Whereas, you know, technically the OpTic dynasty is a bit of an outlier, right? Because you look at overall results, you look at Scump and Kremp, you look at Scump and Karma, you look at Kremp and Karma, Formal and Karma, like, you know, what are the duos in there? Kremp and Karma feels more like a duo than maybe some of the other ones do, and Scump and Kremp definitely needs to be a duo because they, of all the duos, teamed for the longest consecutive period of time after Formal left during the World War II year. So I don't know where these guys would rank in like an all-time duos list. The OpTic dynasty, like, it kind of makes things a little bit strange because there's so many outliers there in terms of the results they had over that period. And even as Nadeshot says, I'll remember the contributions Octane made for 100 Thieves for the rest of my life, delivered multiple majors and a world championship in just a few years, solidified LA Thieves winning legacy forever. So awesome stuff. Obviously wishing the best for Octane, and what's great about this is that he says now things on stream that he might not say before, so we're going to dive into it in the coming minutes. Also wanted to mention that he still has one of the highest ever KDs in a grand final. His first ever major victory came at the first event, South Carolina in Black Ops 3. He had a 1.58 in the finals, the 8th highest finals KD in history, as well as the 2nd highest finals KD in a debut. And these are the overall numbers here. So this just eclipses Kismet's, what was it, a 1.52 in the COD Champs Grand Final this year. If you only look at LAN, then I guess that performance would be top 10 just because, you know, CDL Paris, CDL London number 2, these were online performances, I'm pretty sure. The highest goes to Formal in a final, but Octane's up here, right, with the likes of aBeZy, Kremp, Zuma, Dashy's here at Vegas back in 2019, and we'll discuss both Octane and Dashy here in a second. Also thought this is quite nice. I'll bring this up on the full screen for you guys at the end of the video, just looking at all the players that have retired over the last several years. And way back in the day to the recent times, there's probably some more as well that could be thrown onto this, but yeah, lots of legendary faces on this one. But Censor is still playing right, and the other day he gave these thoughts on Dashy. We know that he's been giving some criticisms of Dashy, right? He said the other day about how Dashy needs to start playing for the win and needs to get his attitude in order and this type of stuff, because otherwise he's never going to achieve success. And look, fundamentally, there's always going to be these questions around Dashy. He made another 2 finals this year, lost both of them. He's won 2 events in 6 years for the biggest franchise, playing with the biggest players. There's always going to be criticism there. Whether you think it's justified or not, that depends on your perspective. Censor certainly thinks the criticism is justified and needs to change up his style. And I think in fairness, over the last several years, the criticisms at times have been fair enough. But this year, I think that Dashy definitely turned a corner, both personally and professionally, you could say, in terms of the way he was as a teammate, ensuring, you know, punctuality, stuff like this that was always discussed as a bit of an issue for him over the last couple of years, but also straight up as a player, playing it for the victory and in the best possible way. So the other day, Doug says that Dashy needs him to win, as in Doug needs to and Dashy need to run it back for the complexity days, where, to be honest, they didn't really win anything, did they? Let's be honest, when they played back then. But you know, blast at Dashy, and then Dashy drops this reply where he well, obviously it's a YouTube video of Doug dropping 5 kills in 5 rounds of control, and no word to Dashy, just straight up drops this to say, like, you are bun sunshine, your opinion means nothing to me, which is absolutely fair enough and justified if Dashy wants to go down this route. Now Octane has his thoughts, and he is going counter to the Censor arguments here, and says straight up that Dashy was phenomenal this year. From Octane's perspective, he turned a corner as a player, certainly like from a professional perspective in terms of the way he played the game, and he says that he's made big strides.
What does Brandon need? He needs me. He needs, like, me, honestly. That's what he needs. He needs me. I think he knows it too. I think he knows he needs me. And if he doesn't know he needs me, then, you know what, I'm just going to go in the league and beat him. And then he's going to know he needs me. I believe I could beat him pretty easily, honestly. Not being a I just think I can beat him pretty easily and consistently too. So I got to get in the league so I can start backing it up and saying shit. Because if I keep saying shit like this, it's just going to be taken as like, Doug, shut the fuck up, you loser. You're not even the CDL. You ain't even in the club, bro. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it's going to be. Like, dog, you ain't even in the club. Talking about beating this guy. You ain't even in the league, dog. You know what I mean? Like, that. I don't know. I think I'll be in the league next year. I think I'll play Brandon. I think I'll beat him. And then I'll be like, haha, I told you so. And then Brandon's probably going to watch this clip and then laugh at me and be like, we'll see about that, buddy. And then we'll just laugh about it because it's not that deep. You know what I mean? But it's going to be deep when I beat his ass. You know what I'm saying? You know what hey, you know what I'm saying? Hey, come on, baby. Come on, son.
Now go, listen, Bruce. We have a heart-to-heart right now, right? You're fucking, listen, chat, I could say this, right? Like, I'm not competing against anyone anymore. I could just say things now. Brandon, you're fucking godlike, bro. Listen to me. The things that you were doing this year, you just got to keep building on that, bro. You were down the right. You were off the kill whore mentality, which is, to be fair, where you should be. But you're doing the shit you needed to do this year, and I respected the fuck out of you for it. Keep it up, kid. You're doing the right. Chad, this guy completely changed how he played COD this year. I don't know if anyone actually realized that or not, but he did, and we tipped that. He's doing the damn thing. I don't know if anyone actually realized that or not, but listen, bro, I get to be. That's like the cool thing about like being non-biased anymore. Like, obviously when I'm in the league, I'm not throwing Brandon gas like that. Like, are you kidding me? I would never. But now I could just like, I could just say how I feel about all these people, and I can like be okay with it.
So I thought some nice words here from Octane to Dashy. We know that despite the difficult result of the World Championship for OpTic Texas, Dashy, I believe, re-signed a new contract before Champs. That's the current rumor, that he re-signed a deal before even going into the World Championship because they want to keep him around for the long term. It was quite clear that when Scump stepped away and Dashy was there, and, you know, Dashy was stepping up to the plate, and Scump kind of said, look, I'm falling down so you can rise up, and all this type of stuff. Like, Dashy was set up at that point to be the chosen one to lead this team back to results. And I think initially, Dashy's like motivation was sky high to make sure he can improve as much as possible as a result of that. Now, the final couple of events didn't go to plan, and there were debates as to whether Ghosty should stay over Dashy. And Ghosty's a very solid player, don't get me wrong, but I do feel like this debate was getting muddied a little bit by just, you know, Ghosty turned around the team to a great degree, but is he theoretically as talented as Dashy is? No, I don't think so. And while Ghosty, I think, will improve over the coming years, for now, dropping Dashy just didn't make that much sense to me, right? And like, you can talk all you want about the results and 2 championships in 6 years or whatever, and it's not great fundamentally, but OpTic is part of Dashy as much as Dashy has been part of OpTic for several years. Like, Dashy, I know people say he gets a lot of hate, which he kind of does at times, but he also gets a lot of love for the community, right? Like, the Bruce chants are everywhere. When Dashy was dropped last off-season, I remember just reading the comments of, I think they dropped a podcast, the OpTic guys, on the same day they dropped Dashy, and like, it had way more dislikes than likes. All the comments are like, what are you guys playing at dropping Dashy? This is a big mistake. And okay, after this season, the tide maybe has turned on that to some degree, despite the fact that Dashy had a pretty damn good season, actually, apart from the very start. At the very start, he was a little bit, you know, not quite so good. And maybe part of that was that he was playing under the Rambo system, whatever you guys want to call it, where he wasn't happy with this. And when he was initially dropped at the start of the season, they did another podcast where Rambo said, and even Scump kind of mentions, some of the issues as to why they dropped Dashy. Dashy disagreed with their perspective, did this absolute wild stream where he talked about Rambo going bowling all the time, and everything kicked off from there. But in fairness, since Rambo's departure and JP came in, they did look somewhat better. Now, I think Rambo did add some elements to that team, just in terms of maybe of consistency or practice regimen, stuff like this, that I think could be valuable, and maybe Karma can bring that back as the head coach going forwards. But I think that without Rambo there, without Dashy feeling like he needs to play in Rambo's style and can kind of play how he wants to, I think it has helped the team in general, with Dashy being straight up more impactful. So getting rid of Ghosty over Dashy is controversial. I know many people wanted Ghosty to stay anyway in addition to Dashy, and I can understand that perspective as well. But I don't think Dashy's going anywhere anytime soon. Hex mentioned it, I think, even back when they were making these changes, that Ghosty and Huke were kind of here as temporary options. Now, maybe if they'd have won the World Championship or something, they'd have stuck around with that roster, or at least Ghosty would have stuck around. Didn't happen though, so those guys depart. cards, but I think Hex said at the time that Shotzzy and Dashy, those are the personalities, those are the guys we're going to be driven by as an organization for the coming years, and it's not like they're bad at COD either, are they, right? Like, they've definitely got championship winning potential in there, which hasn't always been uncovered. These were Dashy's numbers this year, his overall card, a 91 overall. His numbers in terms of KDs aren't as crazy as they might usually be, especially in control. I think he was actually surprisingly weak this year compared to how he usually plays in the mode. But over the other game modes is very impactful. He had some crazy series this year, especially that one against FaZe. I'm sure it's pretty memorable in the in the online days towards the start of the season. And in terms of pure numbers, this might be considered something of a down year for Dashy, to be fair, because these overall ratings, they don't counter KD at all. They just look at the other stats. Like, KD is effectively irrelevant to the overall rating, which maybe is fair enough because KD certainly isn't everything. But I think if anything, Dashy had a bit of a weak year than usually would have from a statistical perspective. But Octane reckons he was probably more impactful and straight up a better player than he has been previously, and absolutely justifies his spot continuing on, especially when you've got players like Simp having certainly a down season for him. I mean, look, it's an 88 overall, largely because of his great search and destroy play, especially on LAN. But if you look at the hardpoint and the control, how often do you see Simp in the respawn modes average out a negative KD? It's only the S&D that's keeping him pretty much positive for the year. A 0.96 in control is crazy because back in Cold War, Simp had like a 1.3 in control. Like, that was when he was on, you know, the top form, and he was dominating that year. This year he averages going basically 18 and 18 with 2,000 damage. It's not particularly impressive. So, I mean, look, you can talk all the other things about Simp and the role he was forced to play to make the team work in the same way that other players, let's say your AR duo isn't quite firing at all cylinders because the pacing between Cellium and Slasher didn't really work so well. Someone's got to pick up the slack, right, or pick up the dirty work to a certain degree, and maybe that guy was Simp this season. I feel like people are disrespecting this guy too much, but fundamentally he had a bit of a down year, and as such, I saw a clip that came up from Scump the other day defending him, and, you know, similar thing with Octane onto Dashy, despite the fact that Dashy was still pretty damn good this season, right? So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Thought this was kind of funny as well from Rokkr. They put the entire Cold War Major 5 reverse sweep up there, despite the fact that one of their former players now, I guess in Cammy, who was on the organization, then it departed, because, I mean, he was on Toronto when Rokkr reverse swept them, and then he joined Rokkr themselves next season, and then, you know, obviously Cammy's not so happy with this being put live. But I just wanted to share this to close out the video then with all of these players. We've got, what, Tommy, Eggs, Theory, Swanee, Spacely, Karma, Saints, Pac-Man, Formal, Krim, Neslo, Embos. I think this is meant to be Zoomer, actually. Miracles, Nature, Unable, Cheen, of course, Methods, Big Time with the backgrounds here. We've got Study, Crowder, Rambo with the bowling balls, of course, JCap Killer, Merc, Apathy, Aqua Nameless, Slacked, that's got to be Proofy, right? And then TP and Scump with Octane in the foreground here. So if you guys aren't familiar with those names, then there you go. But hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.